Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with the motivational firewood guy, Steve Gamlin. He is now in his 18th year as the motivational firewood guy. He shares his back-to-basics blend of positivity and humor with corporate and conference audiences around the country. Drawing from a decade in the radio industry, 7 years of stand-up comedy, and a 30-plus year personal development journey, Steve teaches his clients to see their desired outcomes, understand their why, then build action plans to achieve them, utilizing his Vision Board Mastery program, as well as live and virtual events. We get into all of this and more. Enjoy the interview.
Well, hey there, Joe.
Hey, Steve. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Everything's good, man. Sun is shining. It's great to meet you.
Hey, great to meet you as well. It's here in New Hampshire in the little woods of a small town. It's going to hit 85 today.
Oh, wow.
And I think a month ago today we got 22 inches of snow.
It sounds like you guys are in kind of a Missouri state of mind. That's the way we roll here. It could be below 0 one day and 90 the next. You just don't know.
Oh, yeah.
It's weird. Yeah, it's totally weird. But, yeah, it's sunny and 73 right now, so it's all good.
Wow.
Everything's good.
Nice.
Yeah. So, well, hey, man, before we get into your life and what makes you move, I want to know, first and foremost, kind of the global elephant in the room has been COVID, and it's worked on all of us in its own specific way. How did you survive that 3-year time period, and how are you living life differently now that the world's opening up and even conducting business?
Yeah, I refer to the 3 years as 3 deaths and a pandemic. I lost 3 people very close to me during that time. And when you own 2 event-based businesses and you take a wrecking ball to a part of your body your doctor only gets to see once a year, you got to make adjustments. So I switched over to virtual. I put my DJ business on ice after accommodating all the events that have been postponed. And, it gets really dark sometimes, but when you figure out you can still share what you do the way you do through a little tiny camera, it kind of gives you a second wind. And it's actually, I became a better speaker because of COVID.
Well, and I think that's the great thing about what we've lived through is that, and from my angle of collecting stories, there's been a lot of silver linings that have gone into this. And I think that just says a lot about human resilience and evolution, so to speak.
Yeah, most definitely.
So you are officially called the motivational firewood guy, and I'm curious if we were to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day, and one of the kids looks up at you and asks you, what do you do for a living? How do you answer them?
I help people learn how they can find ways to make their lives happier.
So more specifically to a 50-year-old guy, how do you explain what you do?
Ask them what their life looks like, feels like, sounds like, and even smells like right now compared to what they want it to be. And do they think they have enough gas left in the tank if they're not happy to go after what might make their X amount of years more fulfilling?
So when you were in the 3rd grade as a kid, grade school, what was your dream? What did you want to be when you grew up?
I can tell you exactly what it was. It was actually just beyond 3rd. I wanted to be a radio DJ, a stand-up comedian. I wanted to write my own books, and I wanted to be a teacher of people, but not in a classroom, because I had an inspirational person who made me want to do each one of those things. And now at 55, looking back, I've done them all.
That's great, man. Dream realized. So let's get to the Big Bang theory, so to speak, of your life, the beginnings. Where were you born and raised, and how did these seeds get into you to be, an entertainer and a motivator and someone that gives to other people?
Yeah, I've spent my entire life here in Northeast U.S., in New England, which is sunny one day and snows the next. And, I wanted to be a radio DJ because of a TV show called WKRP in Cincinnati, and I thought this character of Dr. Johnny Fever was the coolest in the world. And I used to grab my dad's old cassette tape recorder and pretend I was doing my own radio shows. As far as comedy, Steve Martin was huge at the time. I was just a kid, but I had his Wild and Crazy Guy album. And I thought, if one person can sit there and hold so many people in the palm of their hand and make them laugh, that's something I wanted to do. My mom instilled the love of reading and writing into me and my sister. And I always was telling stories and wanted to write my own book someday. And then I had a fifth grade teacher named Mrs. Farron, who, whenever I finished my work early, would encourage me to help the other students who might be struggling with one of the lessons. So at 11 years old, she actually had me coaching other people and inspiring them and motivating them and getting them excited about learning. And all of these things hit my 11-year-old brain, and I found joy and excitement in wanting to do every single one. And for better or for the worse, over the past 44 years since then, I've gotten to taste every single one of them. And one would happen, and then maybe it would fall apart, or I'd, grow beyond it. But I would take the seeds of every little piece. And now, as a speaker, as a coach, as an author, 4 books so far, I just keep tapping back into the wonder that I had when I was 11 years old, and I just love what I do.
That's wonderful, man. So talk to me a little bit about who have been kind of perennial role models or heroes for you in your life.
The biggest people for me are the givers out there. And when I say givers, people say, oh, like Mother Teresa. I say, well, yeah, she was a giver. She was an imperfect human being who was a giver. But I get inspired by people who leave situations better than they find them every day, whether they're up on a stage in front of 1,000 people, or if I just see somebody holding a door for somebody else when I'm going to do grocery shopping or go to the bank. I just get so inspired by positive role models in every situation. And so many people go to the famous people or the celebrities or the influencers. Man, I just look for regular, everyday people who are leaving the world better than they find it. And those are the people who inspire me, and they inspire me to be the same every day, no matter if it's applause or recognition, whatever. I just love adding plus signs to as many situations as I can every day. And it starts often with a question. Get out of my car or wherever I'm at, I just look around and go, all right, how can I leave this situation better than I find it? And it actually becomes a game. And it's a game you can't lose.
So let's take that notion a step further for the people you admire. If you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now and spend a little time with them, who would it be?
Oh, my gosh. Jack Canfield, who is my favorite of the speakers out there. Jack's been a hero of mine. I did meet him once for a quick conversation, and I would love to sit down and have lunch with him because I would want to learn how I can do what I do even better. So I'm not just a speaker and a coach and a program creator, but also still a student. And Jack Canfield. Now, years ago, my answer would have been Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones, but I don't know if he can even remember all his stories at this moment. So I'll go with Jack Canfield on this one.
I like it. So as the person that's the motivational guy that helps people get motivated, what is it for you? What is the ultimate motivator that gets you out of bed, that gets you through your day and wanting to do what you want to do with your life?
Helping people to understand the gifts they've already got and to learn when people tell me they want something, I work with them and I teach them ways to figure out why they want it, because that's something that a lot of people don't dig deep enough for. Then they get sidetracked and they get discouraged and they wander off their path, or they give up, or they put them off till next year. When I have these conversations and I see somebody light up and I know we've struck this emotional chord, that for me is the greatest joy, watching them have the greatest joy, going after what they really want in their lives, what's going to make them happy and more fulfilled and connected and loving and creative and interested, which makes people very interesting to me.
So at the end of that said day, how do you look back and quantify it as a good day?
I keep a gratitude journal, and I've been doing that daily for more than 11 years. And my mission every day is to put pen to paper and identify 3 great moments. It doesn't have to be financial. It doesn't have to be anything extraordinary. Matter of fact, I don't broad brush on purpose. I'll think of 3 amazing conversations or situations or something I learned or something that made me laugh or something that made me really interested or something that made me very emotional that day, reconnected me with why I do what I do. So if I just get 3 of those every single day at a time in history when so many people are screaming and complaining and tearing down and being negative, I'm so far ahead of the game. And I've been doing this for years. And even during the pandemic, still did that every day. And how many people can say that they had 1,000 positive moments during the year 2021 or 2022? Because that's about how many I wrote down. So it's a way of me keeping score in a game that I can't lose if I keep writing these things down.
So I got a little nugget for you real quick. I was going to mention after you said something about WKRP. Years ago, I got an old Jeep Cherokee, like an 85, like the version that you could pull the keys out of the ignition going down the highway, you know, those kinds of old cars. And it was red. And one of my best friends got me an actual WKRP in Cincinnati sticker that looked like the station call letters, and I put it on there. I created pandemonium whenever I would get around. People left notes under my windshield. People would talk about it all the time. It was like, it just instantly turned my car into that TV show.
Nice. Yeah, that,
awesome.
Oh gosh. That, I love that. And it's such a cultural thing. I mean, I'm in my mid-50s, so I was there when it was new. But it's still such a cultural thing, especially around Thanksgiving when the turkey drop episode plays.
Yeah. There were so many great moments that went into that show, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of being in your 50s, let's say you have a dream tonight and you run into the 20-year-old version of yourself, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained through your life. What would you tell your young version?
Remember Tina. And that's all I would tell myself, because I would not want to radically alter, for all the highs and lows, and some of the lows have been horrible, I would not want to alter the path of my life. But I would just suggest to remember a girl named Tina that I had a crush on in high school.
That's a great answer, man. So of all of the clients you've had, all of the work that you've done, the speaking, what's been your best success story that you remember? One of the finer fan letters.
There's a woman named Jen who works for one of my biggest vision board clients. We actually just signed the contract for next year. It'll be my 16th year in a row working with her company, teaching visualization and vision boards. And after an event about 4 or 5 years ago, she came to me and said, Steve, I've got a really big goal and I don't know how to pursue it. So I began coaching her, and she wanted to go on a safari in Africa. And I said, all right, well, how much is it going to cost? I don't know. When do you want to go? I don't know. I said, well, okay, start putting together the details of this. Start learning the cost. We'll figure out how long you want to save. And we'll start to incrementally create your steps towards success. We worked together for 2 years, and right on schedule, she saved $10,000 in addition to all her other goals and bills and everything. She tripled her business in 1 year, and she raised the money. It took 2 years to do it, to go to Africa. Now, we had tracking systems. Her favorite animal is a giraffe. So I went online and found a kid's coloring book that had a picture of giraffe with 10 spots on it. So I wrote 500, 500, 500, 500, 500. Every time she banked $500, she would do a Facebook Live to her team members and all of her client base, and she would color in her progress. And we took it to church. It was such a big deal. Combine the words giraffe and Africa, she became known as #GiraffricaJen. And for 2 years, I watched her so proudly do the work, celebrate the incremental wins. And then, of course, the pandemic happened, and she's had to reschedule 3-4 times. She's going next summer, and she's so thrilled. And I could not be more proud of watching what she did. The lessons I gave her, she did the work. She embraced it, and she stayed focused, created momentum, confidence through the roof. And that is my proudest moment as a coach.
That's a great story, man. So speaking of pride, would you consider that like what are you the proudest of in life? Would it be that, or is there something else?
After blowing my life into a million pieces about 20 years ago, I blew up a successful 10-year radio career and just walked away. My first marriage crumbled. And at age 35, when I finally got around to looking at the numbers, I was $62,000 in debt and had to move back in with family. What I'm most proud of is, despite being in the ashes for a while, putting it all back together and learning about visualization and working with a coach back then and starting to see the better version of who I needed to be as well as the goals I wanted to create. And the last 20 years have been A slow-growing, very dramatic, high and low, exciting, fun, scary, passionate, joyful journey. And I got to live it all, and I took a lot of notes, which is what gave me this career. And it all got triggered by hitting a $3 bucket of golf balls in a thunderstorm under power lines, barefoot in the wet grass, daring the lightning to hit me. And when I shared that little story with my coach, he asked, have you ever thought of being a motivational speaker or a stand-up comedian? And he knew nothing about my 4 goals when I was 11 years old. I said, those are the 2 pieces of the puzzle that have been missing all these years. 2 weeks later, I was in a stand-up comedy class, and a week after that, my first Toastmasters meeting. And here we are.
I couldn't help but think about Caddyshack when you talked about the car.
Oh, that part!
I mean, you have to. If you come from a certain generation, it's the first thing that comes in your head.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. And I get asked that a lot, and it always makes me laugh because, yeah, that's exactly what happened. And that's why when people say, hey, Steve, how do you make up the stories you share on stage? I tilt my head like a puppy, and I stare at them and I go, really?
Yeah, I get it. I feel the same thing, man.
Yep.
You know? So everyone out there has a perception of you. You have different lights and bubbles of people, family, friends, clients, colleagues, fans, but ultimately you're in control. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I see myself as a person who tries to leave as many situations as he can better than he finds them every day. To do it with laughter, with compassion, with caring, with creativity, with my favorite 2 words that took me forever to actually believe in, charismatic confidence, because after blowing my life up, I had brutal self-talk for about 10 years. I mean, just self-deprecating, and I beat up that person in my mirror on a daily basis. And now I'm a person who can look in the mirror, give myself a thumbs up or high five, not in a fake, false guru, you know, people love you and you're good enough and smart enough and all that, but I just say, all right, we got this day. And using the best authentic energy possible to just kick a nice little dent of kindness into the world every day in the simplest ways.
So, Steve, if anybody out there wants to learn more about you and what you do, hire you, anything revolving around your world, where can they go?
Nice and easy. If you go to stevegamlin.com, and that's Gamlin, Gamlin. Everything is right there.
Wow, Steve, this has been fresh and refreshing and good. Thank you for opening up, giving me your story. It's quite motivational and inspirational. I get it, for sure.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.